Hi, it's Mr. Anderson, and this is AP Environmental Science Video 1. It's the first in a series of videos for AP Environmental Science, which is the study of the interactions between the systems of the Earth and the human systems. And I remember visiting Shanghai and looking across the Bund and thinking, wow, we have so many people on our planet. We're pushing well beyond 7 billion. That's going to put pressure on the Earth, and understanding how that works is incredibly important. And so AP Environmental Science will study the interactions between the natural systems and the human systems. So we'll begin with the Earth itself, and then we'll move through living systems, and finally we'll get to the populations that make up human systems. The rest of the course will be dedicated to the interactions between these two worlds. And so we'll begin with land and water use, then energy, finally pollution and climate change. Now, since this is a science course, it's incredibly important that we study the practices of science, what it is to be an environmental scientist. And so this is the outline for the course. We'll begin with the Earth, we'll move through climate change, but we're going to deal with the practices throughout. Now, what's most important to us as humans are the human populations. And so to live within those boundaries, it's important that we understand the concept of sustainability. What happens when you outstep those boundaries? Well, we could look to Easter Island for an example. We used to have a flourishing population there, but what happened was deforestation. They put pressure on the island itself, and their population dropped off dramatically. And so as we study environmental science, we'll deal with very important figures, but I wanted to begin with a very important figure named Rachel Carson. And she really brought us into the modern age of environmental science. Her study of DDT and the negative consequences of that, which are illustrated in her book, Silent Spring, really brought that to the forefront of our minds. What are we doing and how are we impacting the environment itself? And so this is an environmental science course. And so like any other science course, we're going to deal with a scientific method. Now, sometimes students will confuse that term with environmentalism. Now, that's going to be a belief system. So we are going to lobby officials and try to get laws passed that protect the environment. That's not environmental science. Environmental science is looking for that truth of how we can interact with the environment. So maybe in the future, science will say that DDT is an important tool that we could use to fight malaria. Then we have to follow that pathway. And so why is this course important? Well, when I was young, people used to wear t-shirts that said, "Save our planet." And it's kind of a funny shirt because the planet, the Earth, is going to do fine. It's how we do on that planet that's important to us. And so a better slogan is "Save our society." And why is that a big deal right now? Well, we're starting to exceed some what have been coined planetary boundaries by Johan Rockström and his group at the Stockholm Resilience Center. And so if we look at this model, we look at all the things that are affecting the Earth that can then affect society. And so the one that you're probably familiar with is climate change. But we also have ocean acidification, we have ozone depletion, we have changes in biogeochemical cycling, increases in nitrogen and phosphorus. We have fresh water use or the availability of fresh water, deforestation, biodiversity loss, particle pollution, and chemical pollution. And so what they've done is said, how can we exist within the safe boundaries of the Earth? So on this model, if we say the blue represents where we can safely live, this yellow dot represents where humanity was pre-industrialization. Before the Industrial Revolution and the spread of industry around the world, these were our levels. But now if we look at where we are as far as those boundaries, as far as climate change, we're increasing the climate, the temperature, and as a result, we're going to have consequences that are beginning to affect society and will continue to affect society. We're looking at a 3-degree increase, which is incredible. But if we look at these other ones, ocean acidification, ozone depletion, our increase in the amount of nitrogen in the biosphere, phosphorus, if we look at fresh water use, deforestation, biodiversity loss, a lot of scientists say we are headed into the 6th extinction, that caused by humans. Now, we don't have good models for pollution, but if you put our Earth back, we're exceeding these boundaries. We're putting pressure on the Earth. Now, the Earth will survive, but humans may not survive in the numbers that we are today. And so that's why it's important. We have to live within the boundaries of the Earth itself. And so sustainability is incredibly important. Now, a model that works is since industry brought us to this point, industry is going to have to bring us back. And so this model works for me. If you think of the Earth as this boundary of life support and society exists within that, then what's at the center, what drove industrialization? It's the economy. And so as we come up with solutions for sustainability, it's not enough to just say that we should save the earth because that's good, or we should be altruistic in that. It has to be an economical driver that's pushing that sustainability. Another term that you'll hear a lot is the idea of an ecological footprint. Since I live in a developed country, I'm using more resources on our planet than other people in developing countries. And so as they become developed, that's going to put even more pressure on the planet. And so that's why this course is incredibly important. It's also why this is unlike the other sciences that you've probably taken. It's not just going to be science. It's going to contain the natural sciences, but it'll also have the social sciences and the humanities as well. So we're going to be talking about science, but also we'll be talking about ethics and law and politics. And so it's really going to be a fun course to walk through. Also, you should remember that this is a science course. And so as we move forward, the AP folks are focusing on the practices of science. So inside the course itself, you should be acting like an environmental scientist rather. And so you shouldn't just be learning about environmental sciences, you should be applying it. So if we start with one of these practices, asking questions, conducting investigations, this would be a great field investigation for me to do. So this is the Eastern Gallatin right outside Bozeman. And so I could do studies here on water quality over time, but I could also do studies in the laboratory. I should be doing investigations where I'm coming up with a question and trying to answer that question. Case studies will be incredibly important as well, making these connections between what we've learned in the course. So you're probably familiar with the Deepwater Horizon. There was a fire and that led to this spread of oil. So this fire, eventually there was a breach of the pipe and now we have oil spreading. So to look at where we are, this is in the Gulf of Mexico, this is Florida, and so we're looking at this area right here. You can see so much oil is spread out. And in each of these case studies, there's something happening to the environment. And so we have to understand all the ramifications of that. And lots of times it takes decades to figure out what really has happened. And then finally, you're going to take an AP exam at the end. And so understanding how that AP exam is important right now to understand what can you do throughout the course to kind of prepare for that. And so analyzing data, using mathematics is going to be incredibly important. So let me briefly talk about the test. And so the first section will be multiple choice. You're going to have 100 questions. You get 90 minutes to answer those questions. Some will be discrete by themselves and some will come in big sets. So you might have a map and be trying to point to different geology on the planet. And then you'll move into the free response. In the free response, you're going to have one question that's going to be based in a data set. And so understanding how to analyze data, both on the multiple choice and the free response, is incredibly important. You'll then have one document-based question. It's always on this pretend city named Fremont. So it's an article in the Fremont Gazette, for example. And so you're going to have to analyze that. So connecting the knowledge that you've learned is incredibly important. And you're also going to have to do a lot of calculating. And what's interesting is there's no calculator. So prepare for that. So understanding how to solve simple problems just using mathematics, dimensional analysis, and scientific notation, that's incredibly important as well. And so did you learn the following? Could you fill out this concept map? Well, you could pause the video right now and try to do that, but I'll step you through it. And so what is environmental science? It's the interactions between the natural systems and the human systems. That will be the earth systems and the living systems interacting with populations. And so this is interactions right here. We'll start with land, water use, energy. We move towards pollution and the pressures we're putting on the earth and global change. And remember that you want to focus on the practices. So hopefully you've learned that, and I hope that was helpful.